Recently, 3 people have revealed to me they either have diabetes or prediabetes, and one of these persons shared that after her third organ transplant, she developed temporary diabetes. All 3 of these people are close in age to myself. I'm in my early 40s, and that's pretty young to develop diabetes or prediabetes. So I thought, if I know 3 people, certainly there are a whole lot more that are experiencing this problem. So why not make something of value, something useful for these people? And that brings me to the subject for today, GLUT4, GLUT4, or glucose transporter 4. There are about 13 different types of glucose transporters in the body. Some live in the neurons of the brain, some live in the liver, and the other ones live other places, but GLUT4 lives in skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, and fat tissue. And it's the one that we have the most control over because we can move our muscles at will, pretty much any time. So the interesting thing about GLUT4, at least I think so, is it reminds me of the movie or the book Dune, D-U-N-E. If you haven't seen it, it's a fantasy sci-fi movie. It takes place on a hot desert planet full of sand. And underneath the surface of the sand, there are these big giant worm monsters. I said worm, like squiggly worm. And anytime there's something on the surface, people, vehicles, animals, these giant worm monsters come up to the surface and they gobble them up. And GLUT4, these transporters we're talking about, are much like these worms. They don't live on the surface, they live within the cell. And anytime glucose reaches the muscle cell, then there is a signal release, insulin. And that signal triggers these transporters to come up to the surface, take glucose, gobble it up, and bring it into the cell. So let's talk about GLUT4 and how you can manipulate it to your benefit. We're talking about GLUT4 transporters and glucose. I could show you anatomical models, but they're not as fun as these analogies, so we're going to use this. The big, giant desert sandworms that live under the surface of the desert, like in the book or the movie Dune. These are going to be our GLUT4 transporters because they live under the surface, not on the surface. And when you eat food, it's broken down into nutrients, one of which is glucose, and it's transported through the circulatory system in the blood to different organs. In this case, it will be muscle. So this human on the surface represents glucose. And when they walk, they make noise and vibrations. And that signal we will call insulin. The signal tells the worm there's food on the surface, so the worm travels up and gobbles what's there. And after some time, the worm goes back to subsurface. The same thing happens in the GLUT4 transporters embedded into our cells, into the muscle cells, cardiac cells, and fat cells. And insulin is the thing that communicates these transporters to go to work and clear the bloodstream of glucose, blood sugar. And for some people, they either don't create enough insulin to trigger off the transporters, or other people just don't have responsive enough transporters, or not enough transporters, a low saturation. Now, all exercise, even in the absence of insulin, will cause these transporters to come up to the surface and hang out for 2 to 4 hours. Now, aerobic exercise, which you typically see in running, bicycling, rowing, swimming, for 30 to 60 minutes, in as little as a few weeks, will increase the saturation of GLUT4 transporters and their responsiveness to come up to the surface when insulin is released. Now, strength training, typically in the form of calisthenics or weightlifting, will also increase the saturation of GLUT4 transporters, but not as effectively as aerobic training. But where strength training has an advantage is in real estate. So even though strength training doesn't saturate the muscle tissue as effectively as aerobic training, it does increase the overall size and surface area, giving more real estate for the GLUT4 transporters to live in. If you couple strength training and aerobic training, you can get the benefits of both worlds. Larger surface area with higher saturation of GLUT4 transporters. HIIT training is supposed to have the same effect as aerobic training, to where you saturate the tissue, but the research says aerobic training is still the winner when it comes to the overall benefit of GLUT4 transporters. Because aerobic training builds slow twitch muscle, which is rich in GLUT4 transporters, while HIIT training builds fast twitch muscles, which are not rich in GLUT4 transporters. Aerobic training is typically done 30 to 60 minutes, HIIT training 15 to 25 minutes, but a lot more intense. Whatever type of exercise you pick something that is fun so that you will enjoy it and continue to repeat it. Bye now.